into more clarity when we talk about how HIV progresses and develops in the body, but it's important to know that HIV is deadly because it really knocks out our ability to generate immune responses to it and to other infections. And we'll see that a lot, that it's not really, as Dr. Jacobs mentioned the first Friday we met, the HIV that's going to kill you in the long term, but it's going to be the immune suppression and then the subsequent infection with another agent that your body will usually be able to take care of that's going to lead to death. So here we see the inability, I think he's showing in this cell. Oh no, I'm sorry. So we're getting to the idea of immune memory here. So we're going to talk about another cell type called the T suppressor cells. So the T suppressor cells are going to suppress the, it's right in the name, right? It's going to suppress the immune response in order that there is not an inflammatory response that's really dangerous to an individual. So unchecked, after an infection was cleared or had gone on for a number of days, up to a week, if you did not stop the progression of dividing cells and targeting, then it would be toxic for your body, and it would likely lead to death. So T suppressor cells are very necessary in reducing the function of immune cells for a specific antigen once infection is getting cleared, and then reducing the number of those cells as well as their activity. The idea is you're taking these huge populations that you raised up, so we're talking about millions of cells, down to a small reservoir. So the idea is if you took each of these large populations down to a smaller number, say from 1 million to 1,000 cells, you would still have these cells in circulation, so that when you were then infected by an agent like the flu again, you had already had an immune response to the flu or a flu protein that might have been introduced by a vaccine. Once T suppressor cells have reduced the immune response, you are still left with a subset of cells. And it's not just B cells. So a lot of people think of memory as B cells, and antibodies are surely important because they have the ability to mediate infection and to provide a fast immune response through opsonization of the antigen. Just forget everything I just said. We don't really need to know about that.
Google it.
Yeah, check it out on Google if you'd like. But the idea is there is not just a subset of B cells, but also of T killer cells and T helper cells, so that we can react much more rapidly. We don't have to raise as many cells. It doesn't take as long to mount the immune response once we see the infectious agent again, or a similar infectious agent. This is why things like vaccines work. This is why we get vaccinated for things like the flu. So we talked about also specific memory T helper lymphocytes. These memory T helper lymphocytes in your body would also, again, be CD4 positive, and these co-receptors exist on them. And then pause.
Ooh, okay, so basically, if you're still listening, good for you. I think this is a really good review slide here as well. This explains basically everything that's going on. So the macrophage chews up the virus, presents it to the T cell. The T cell attaches, starts to split, gives off lymphokines, which activate the T killer cells and the B cells. The T cells also have to attach to the macrophage, and if they don't get the lymphokines, if they just attach but don't get the lymphokines, they don't do anything. But if they get the lymphokines as well, then they start to split, and then they can go and kill the infection. They can kill the cells infected with the virus. And the same goes for the B cells. They attach to the macrophage. Some of them get activated by the lymphokines, and then they start to split, and then they give off the antibodies. The antibodies neutralize the virus particles in the bloodstream by opsonization, if you want to Google that. And the T suppressor cells attach to the macrophage. So what I just said is basically, would you say a letter grade? If you can't explain that, you can expect to be dropped a letter grade, right?
They're very important. The cell roles are very important, and the way that they're activated, yeah.
So you want to be able to write that out. I don't know if that's going to be a test question or not, but that is definitely, you know, that's key. This is going to haunt you if you don't know exactly, if you can't explain what's going on here. And then also you want to keep straight the different receptors. So this is CD4, this is the T helper is CD4, macrophage is CD4. T helpers, they have they're the ones with the two, the CCR5 and the CXCR4. And then macrophage is just CCR4. Sorry, CCR5. And we'll talk, you know, those satellite receptors will become more important when we talk about the biology of HIV. T killer cells, CD8, B lymphocyte cells, lymphokine cell, or what do we call it? Lymphocyte?
B cells.
B cells.
Yeah, B lymphocytes.
CD20. You're definitely going to want to keep these straight. So with that,
I'll chime in again. So the idea is, when you're studying, tie this back to what we can talk about with HIV, and really bring that to the forefront of your mind, because a lot of the questions on the test aren't just going to be about cellular or innate immunity, but how do they relate to HIV and infection. So we haven't talked a whole lot about it yet, but remember which cells HIV targets. So spend some time and review that. Spend some time why, and we talked specifically because the cell receptor, CD4, is important in that case. Know which cells HIV will infect and kill, and know which cells HIV will infect but not kill. Why is it important that HIV infects and kills T helper cells? And a good way to start thinking about that answer is that they really coordinate the cellular or the specific immune response, while a macrophage is going to be able to have an innate immune response. Innate immune response is going to occur, but we're not really going to be able to combat an infection with HIV or another antigen without the use of T helper cells and specific immune response. So those are all good pieces to check out and recap as you're learning.
all right.